thank you so much. It's actually really exciting to be here in this digital format, as well as actually speaking to real people. Seeing that you have bodies and legs is great. And as I am among family, I'll tell you that the last time I spoke from a church stage in West London, I did quite an athletic leap up the little steps and split my trousers at the back. True story. Had to borrow a cardigan from a friend in order to preserve my dignity. And I did see those exact trousers on my floor this morning, and I thought, not today, Satan. And I put on this dress. So you'll be pleased to hear no wardrobe mishaps from me. I was going to start by praying, but we've just had an amazing prayer. So let's just jump straight into the Bible. I'm reading from 2 Corinthians 12, and that's verses 7 to 9, and I'm reading from NIV. Therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so Christ's power may rest on me." Amen. What a book, the Bible. Am I right? So I'm going to talk about strength and weakness and all of the things that kind of come in with that package. I'm quite a weak person, yes, physically, and actually I had my second jab yesterday, so this arm goes no higher than that right now. This is absolutely good for nothing for another 24 hours. But even without jabs, I can't do pull-ups, reformer Pilates are completely out of the question. I struggle with a fair proportion of jars. But it's not just physically that I recognize that I'm weak. There's a lot in my character which is pretty weak. I'm rubbish at keeping routine, even when I know it's good for me. You know, eating healthily, doing your exercise, morning prayer. I try, and I'm just not great at that. I also slam myself full of engagements and appointments and then just expect the people around me to operate with grace when I'm really quite irritable and mean. But I will save more of that for my therapist. These things, though, they are weaknesses, of course they are, but they're annoyances, they're character defects, they're stumbling blocks, they're little splinters that we can pull out with some tweezers. They're not this, like, thorn that Paul was talking about, this tool for torment that he discusses. So when I thought about the thorn, I actually thought, well, that's not too bad. You know, I'm sure lots of us have maybe picked roses or arranged some flowers and snagged our skin on a thorn. And it's like, okay, it's not ideal. No, it's no one's favorite. But it's not going to, you know, ruin your life. It's probably not even going to ruin your day. So I took the decision to do something I never thought I would do. And this is the first time I'll say this. I've looked it up in the original Greek. So I don't know who I think I am. It's like one new wine talk and I'm suddenly Timothy Keller. But there we go. I have looked up in the original Greek, and I can tell you that this thorn could also be translated as a stake. So a stake is in, you know, you put your stake in the ground, maybe you're putting up fence, or, you know, maybe something out of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer or some other show that my mum would not let me watch. These things are huge, you know, and actually it's not just a small grievance to have a stake in your side. That we're talking debilitating. So that's what we're thinking about. And Paul doesn't specify what his thorn is, his stake in his side. It could be something physical. There's lots of speculation. You know, he'd been arrested and beaten and tortured, and so maybe he was talking about a physical pain that made things difficult for him. Maybe he was talking about his mental health, you know, anxiety or depression. Some people think he was talking about lust and not being able to manage that. I actually think it doesn't matter, and I think it's good that he doesn't specify what he's talking about, because I don't know about you guys, but if I hear a story and it's not directly linked to me, I can kind of switch off. But the ambiguity Paul has left there kind of allows us to put ourselves in those shoes and think about what that thorn, what that stake in our side could be. And having praised Paul for being so vague about his stake in his side, I'm going to be very specific about mine, but, that's what I'm here for. It's a bit of a testimony. So, as we've already said, I am in recovery for drug and alcohol addiction. And this is where Hannah really earns her money, because I haven't scripted this bit. So the lovely Hannah on sign language, we're in this together. Earlier today, we were praying out back, and I thought to myself as we were praying, I actually can't believe I'm here. It's wild. What am I doing? What are they doing for asking me to be here? I'm a horrible person. I've done some horrible, horrible things. I've thought some horrible, horrible things. And in the midst of addiction, you're lying and you're manipulating, and you become a person you don't even recognize, even if you knew yourself in the beginning. And that's very much my story. I was taken to church when I was young, but I didn't get it. I didn't like it. And at about the age of 13, I kind of chose to stop going to church and got really invested in that teenage, drink-riddled life, park benches, bottles of White Lightning, all of that. And what I found there was a solution to social anxiety that I had felt for so long. I never felt good enough. I always wanted to be popular. I always wanted to be liked. I always felt on edge in groups of people, and I always felt like I fell short. And it's not that once I'd drunk a lot, I was suddenly way more palatable. It was just that I got to stop thinking those things for just that moment. For the time that I was, drinking, I didn't have to think about how miserable I was. And that felt like an excellent solution to me. Things continued, things snowballed. I stopped drinking White Lightning and I started drinking spirits. And by the time I was 22, I was drinking quite heavily, but I also started taking drugs. And it was a pretty quick decline for me when I started taking drugs. I worked in hospitality, which is an industry where it's a work hard, play hard mentality. And at this point, I had no connection with God. I didn't feel like I might have called myself Christian. I certainly didn't pray or have a personal relationship with Jesus. And I was just getting things wrong. And I was, physically, I had a lot of problems. I had nosebleeds. I had numbness in my fingers and toes, and I couldn't remember anything. I was a 22-year-old who couldn't remember things that happened 5 minutes beforehand. I literally lived my life on Post-it notes just so that I could keep track of the chaos around me. I was always late. I distanced myself from the people I loved and who loved me in favor of people who wouldn't challenge my using, and I made them my priority. I stopped washing properly. There was the occasional day where I would have a hot shower and put moisturizer on my skin, and I'd just think to myself, how amazing. I've really looked after myself today. But just to give you an idea, that was probably twice a year that I actually managed to get myself together in that way and practice any kind of self-care. The rest of the time, it was stacking up bills. It was court summons to pay bills that I hadn't even opened. It was, just not even making breakfast or brunch plans with people because I couldn't guarantee that I wouldn't still be drunk from the night before. It was lonely. It wasn't fabulous. I thought it would be. I thought, someone who takes drugs and, is out and about, a girl on the town, it stops being fabulous very quickly and starts being really desperate. So I told my sister, if we were to draw a comparison with a biblical story, we're talking a prodigal situation. She's the one who stayed and got no credit for it, but she's there. She carried on going to church all through her teenage years, and I said to her, I'm gonna need your help here. So she came over, she moved me out of my flat, she typed out a pre-written resignation letter, sent me into work with it, took me to church. I didn't get church, and actually, now that I know how important my faith is to me, I see how painful that would have been for her to have taken me there and said, come on, God, You know, you reach out to people who reach to you. She turned up. Why is this not happening? I just didn't get it. So I decided to move to Paris because I thought London's not working for me. At the time when I left London, I knew more drug dealers than I did Christians. Got really heavily into drinking in Paris. It was a pretty miserable time. And then my friends staged a bit of an intervention and sent me to a cocaine addicts support meeting. And I went because I thought it'd get them off my back, number one, stop them moaning. And number two, I thought, it'd be quite interesting. I've seen the American films, you stand up, you're like, hi, I'm Laura, and I'm an alcoholic. I thought, yeah, brilliant, what great people watching. But actually, when I got there, what I found were people who knew how I felt before I even said anything out loud, who recognized that place of desperation. And they took me for lunch afterwards, and I didn't ask anything. But the girl sitting next to me, and this is so God, this is so, this is God, just turned to me and said, do you know I moisturize every day now? And I was like, wow. Imagine a life where you take even 90 seconds after washing every day, and actually moisturize your skin, actually put on clean clothes. And it was just that sentence, and I thought, she's got something I need. I could be that person. I could have moisturized skin. So I stuck with it. And I have been sober since that date, which was the 22nd of April, 2014. And I became a Christian 5 days later when I walked into a church, an absolute mess, and asked for prayer. And thank God I met the people I did. Church was incredible, obviously. They walked with me and supported me, and a year and a half later, they baptized me and championed me and sung "Oh Happy Day," and it was amazing. But actually also, as well as investing and learning about my faith in Jesus, I used a 12-step program to get myself into a position of strength. And the 12-step, it sounds like, I think particularly for people who aren't in it, who don't know the process well, it kind of sounds like this weird, mystical thing, what even is that? It's actually just 12 really practical, really biblical steps that you can introduce into your life that will get you onto an even keel, a good path, if you do it properly. So really briefly, steps 1 and 3, identifying your higher power, obviously for me, and for a large number of the people watching, that would be Jesus, God of the Bible, and submitting to that higher power. 4 and 5 are about taking inventory of your life and the things you've done and the ways you've treated people and looking at that. And 6 and 7 are about sort of extrapolating from that the character defects that your experiences and choices have left you with. Maybe you're prideful or, have low self-esteem or whatever, and you hand those to God. And then in 8 and 9, you just make amends. You apologize where you've been wrong. And then 10, 11, and 12 are about practicing these principles in your life and incorporating prayer and meditation and supporting others who need that same level of help, as well as taking that inventory and making amends. So it's nice, It would be great if, to be honest, it'd be great if everyone just did the 12 steps. It would save us all a lot of heartache, I think, addiction or not. But I'm going to focus now on this idea of submission as such a key part, certainly, of my recovery, and definitely, I think, a really tangible way that you can see that your weakness can be turned into God's strength and God's power. I've heard lots of people talk about handing over to God. I don't know if that's something that's come up in your lives, in the preaching and stuff like that. And there's always a part of me that's like, yeah, no, I hear you, but how? But actually how? What words? Do I get on my knees? Have I done it? I think I'm doing it. Am I doing it right now? Have I handed over? Do I even mean this? I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I think also you only really realize that you fully handed over retrospectively, which is a bit frustrating. But this is how you hand over in that moment. And it's unlikely to feel like a lightning bolt or a massive change, but it is practical. First of all, you just need to admit that you need to. You just need to admit that actually God can do this better than you. And I think I've got the upper hand here because this whole Jesus take the wheel thing. I tried driving on my own. If my life has taught me anything, it's that I cannot drive well, both spiritually and literally, unfortunately. My speed awareness course told me that. But yeah, don't wait until you're at rock bottom. Don't wait until you've got a story with that level of desperation before you get out there and you say, God, do this for me. If anything, amazing that you're not there yet. Intercept it, you know. When you're in the middle of something really hard, I think a lot of people would tell you, keep going, push on, fight, you know, just keep throwing yourself into it, get to this milestone, tick this thing off your list, and then you'll be there. And actually what recovery, and I believe God, tells us is something really, there's a phrase in recovery we say all the time, we stopped fighting. And there's something so powerful about that. Addiction for me was a fight. It was a battle between the me that wanted to make amazing choices and do good things and wake up in the morning and be proud of myself and be someone that people like feel safe to leave their kids around. And then the me that was like, yeah, but we'll start that tomorrow, tonight. There's fun to be had. We can go out, we can party, we can see these people. That's way better. Like all of that will come tomorrow. And that battle raged on, and it's exhausting. It's basically that tongue twister verse from Paul again in Romans 7. For I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing that I hate. For I may desire to do what is right, but not, I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I keep on doing. And that's Romans 7, 15 and then 18 and 19. It's literally that, but it's Groundhog Day. And actually, what I think people don't realize is that I'm not stronger now. It's not that I wake up every day and I fight that battle and I win. I just don't fight. I just do not engage with it. And practically, what does that look like? If there's a battle raging in your head, you stop the conversation. The second you're engaging with it, you're losing. Just cut it. Take those thoughts, hand them over to Christ, make them obedient to Christ. Just say to the Lord, like, Jesus, I can't do this, but you can, and I want your strength. Please take over, do this for me. And I'm telling you, this works. What I've learned is that if I fight, I lose, but if I leave God to do it for me, I win. So, eagle-eared people listening to this might have noticed that I used the term recovering instead of recovered when I said about my situation in addiction. So, yes, I'm in a strong place. I'm 7 years clean and sober. That's amazing. And that sort of obsession is all but lifted. But to say that I'm recovered, to me, would mean that I'm a person who can, you know, come for dinner and grab a glass of wine with you and not have a second. Or maybe even be one of those people who I do not understand, who leave a bit in the bottom of the glass. Are you crazy? You can see why it's not good for me. Point in case. Yeah, maybe. And maybe I could. Maybe I could have a glass of wine and not think, okay, where's the second one coming from? Am I going to pick up drugs now? Which shop am I going to go to get a bottle on the way home? Will they know that I've kept drinking? Am I going to get enough? Am I going to get more? Maybe I could do that, but I just don't think so. And actually, the consequences of trying versus the perks of trying, it's like, why even bother when I'm, you know, more than happy as I am as a teetotaler? Basically, I don't think that God has taken that stake, that thorn out of my side. That's still there. I'm not able to drink moderately, and I don't want to. If there was a pill that let me, I wouldn't take it. Because every day that I remember that I am constrained in that way, that is something I'm not able to do, I remember that God brought me through it. I can see his perfect power working through me, and that I wouldn't have asked for it, and I'm sure God didn't ask for me to be put through that. I don't think God drags you through a miserable life and a miserable lifestyle, but what he's done with it, the miracle of it. I'm just in awe of a God that turns something so dark into something beautiful. So there we go. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. I wanted to be able to drink moderately. It's new that I now don't care. I prayed for it. He petitioned 3 times. I don't even know who I was praying to, but I asked for all sorts when I was using. I wanted to be a person who could, drink at dinner parties and at weddings. Even, to be honest, I wasn't Christian then. Maybe, take a few drugs at New Year. That's what I thought would be the ideal. I couldn't imagine a life without it. But actually, I see now that I wasn't trading the misery of addiction for the misery of abstinence, but actually for life, and life in its fullness, and the life that Jesus died to give us. And I would never even consider going back. So I'm going to round this off. I think if you bring a topic as heavy as addiction, you've got to inject some hope. So there's 3 different groups of people I'd love to address. And then I'll round us off in prayer. If you're in the midst of something really difficult, and that could be addiction, but it could be a mental health struggle, maybe debt, maybe adultery, maybe some physical pain or something like that. I just want you to know that while God didn't answer my prayer to be cured, to be zapped, to be done, he answered it with so many more things. I'm a person who moisturizes every day now. I am living my own dream. And more than that, I get to stand on stages and tell you about it. I never asked for this. I didn't know that the life I had right now was even available. I didn't know it was a thing. I wouldn't have known what to pray for. It's so incredible. It's so mind-blowing. There is a path through it, but it's via submission to God. And it's scary, and it may not feel like it's happened straight away, but it will if you keep praying that prayer and you keep handing over. God transforms. Just let him do it. Get out of your own way. If someone you love is struggling with an addiction, then I'm so sorry, because that is agony. To see someone you care about in a place of such desperation, to hear them make promises that they truly believe at the time but can't deliver on. Maybe there's lying, maybe there's manipulation, a huge amount of disappointment, I'm sure. I'm so sorry, and it's the biggest question I get asked. It's like, well, what do I do? What do I say? Tell that person you love them that you find it very hard to see how they are treating themselves, and you will be there for them as they work through this, and you know it's going to take a long time, but they have got to do something to help themselves. No one gets clean and sober or steps away from addictive behaviors without truly wanting to for themselves. People's children can be taken away, people can lose all their money, and they can still keep going because they're just not there yet. So it's a case of praying and supporting and encouraging that person to take positive steps for themselves and not for you. And finally, if you are a person who is struggling with an addiction, and that can be gambling, sex, shopping, porn, spending, substances, alcohol and drugs, it could be food, it could be love, it could be codependency. You should know that I don't know anyone who has gotten into recovery on their own. The most powerful thing you can say is help me. Confide in people in your church. Turn up at a support group like I did. Go to NHS drug and alcohol services. Speak to a charity, phone a helpline, do something, but don't expect that your praying is going to get you zapped and you'll be fine, because God is giving you the tools to help yourself. And it's so important you use them. Your life is so valuable that it's such a waste not to embrace the full freedom that is available to you. Okay, so let's just pray. Oh, God, what a session. Thank you that we can be here, that we can worship, that we can, gather in groups across the country to hear this. And there may be some people who caught bits and pieces, and if that's the case, I pray that they were the right bits and pieces. And if there are people who feel really moved by this, Lord, I pray that you continue the conversation, that you bring people around them who can support them as they explore this. And for anyone out there who really feels like the dust has just been well and truly kicked up, Lord, I pray that you would just breathe your life into them. Show them your message of hope. Show them that actually they don't need to fight anymore because you're here and you do it for them. Get them to put that armor on and walk with you, Lord, to live in that complete freedom. In your name, Jesus. Amen.